the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. United means that in theory or in intent, the people who are the victims of racism and are the white people who are against the proliferation or the continued use of racism as the standard for the world's business should be united against that standard. The independent part means that each individual has to do what he or she can to counter racism with the ultimate objective of ending it and replacing it with a thing that we loosely call justice, ultimately leading to peace, quote unquote. Now that means that you're independent. You are a independent person.
So it's not a collective effort.
It's collective in that you go to the third and fourth words, compensatory, code. You become collective by using a code, the code of compensation, making up. That's what compensatory means, making up for what's missing. Right, and you have a code to make up for what is missing. What is missing is the use of truth to produce justice and correctness, which theoretically would equal peace. So you come up with a compensatory code, a way of thinking, speaking, and acting each and every day in all of the 9 areas of activity. Then you use that code as an individual, wherever you happen to be, in all of those areas of activity. And right now, you don't have, it's only a concept. That's where the word concept comes in. See, it's strictly theory right now. You don't have a concept of white supremacy without the practice, because white supremacy is being practiced. A concept of the elimination of white supremacy and or racism and or injustice is strictly a concept. There's no such thing as justice existing anywhere on the planet, since the definition for justice is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. People are mistreated all over the planet all the time. So you just have a concept of justice. What you have is practical injustice. It's the difference between having a concept of justice and having it actually in practice. Well, that's obvious. If you are imprisoned unjustly, it means that you do not have the power to get out of prison because of 2 factors. You don't have the will or you don't have the ability. Now, those who are the victims of racism don't have the ability because they do not have the will that provides the ability or the ability to provide the will to not be victims. Also, the racists do have the will and the ability to practice white supremacy. They have proven that.
And that's why you say that there really can't be such thing as a black racist.
No.
Because it has to do with the ability to...
It has to do with the power relationship. It has to do with something that you're actually doing.
Carrying out.
You're actually doing it. White supremacy is a fact. A lot of people do not like to admit to its existence, but any comprehensive analysis would show that such a thing does exist. So therefore, you can't have a system of black supremacy within a system of white supremacy. It's a total contradiction. Yes, it's a total disaster. What you mean by total is, at this particular point, it is total, because there is not a quality relationship between white people and non-white people on this planet because of the existence of the system of white supremacy. That cuts out any ability of anybody to produce a quality relationship between black people and white people. It also eliminates the possibility under the system of non-white people, black, brown, red, and yellow, interacting with each other or even with white people in a manner that is quality. By quality, we mean justice. We mean with truth. We mean doing the correct thing. You can't do it under a system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy is based on mistreating people and having the people react to that mistreatment. So what you have is just a lot of abuse and reactions to abuse. and a continuation of the same. Now, you do accomplish a lot of technical things.
Such as?
Well, such as production of building of bridges, the building of highways, the building of buildings, of schools that, by the way, support the system of white supremacy. Right. And all of these things are designed to do just that. It's a giant ego trip for a white person to be told that because you're white, you are somewhat substantially royal, and so you should act like it. So that's a lot of incentive. Now, a non-white person sitting, say, in a classroom setting is told directly, indirectly, within the system of white supremacy, now you are being trained to be a victim of all of this. In the system of white supremacy, it is absolutely required. In other words, the white student is being taught systematically how to be a white supremacist. The non-white student is being taught how to be a victim. So you have an opposites right there
in the same
classroom at the same time. In other words, the white student is being taught systematically how to be a white supremacist. The non-white student is being taught how to be a victim. So you have an opposites right there
in the same
classroom at the same time. And the result is going to be that. Why? Because of the words that are used right in the classroom itself. The terms and the intent. This can be dismantled by changing the words, changing the way language is used, changing the way that things are glorified or not glorified. It cannot be offset by anything called Afrocentrism. It's no way to talk about the system of white supremacy or racism in general without, as it stands now, without embarrassing black people and without offending white people. It's just no way to do it. But that goes with the territory of trying to solve the problem.
Why would black people feel embarrassed?
Because most people who like to feel that they have self-esteem and power, etc., are embarrassed when they find out that their self-esteem is very low, that they are really not very proud of themselves, that they really haven't accomplished anything that they can really point to that matters within the body politic of the system of white supremacy. So therefore, it causes a person to become embarrassed. A person becomes embarrassed when they sit in a classroom and they listen to the word dark being used. That's a non-white person. And just the way the word black or dark is being used in almost every setting or
even
context.
In the dictionary.
Yes.
The way you look at the word
the student sits there and the student listens to words like dark ages. And you will say the person has a dark past. And you will hear that word being used repeatedly. Dark, dark, dark. Within the context of something that is very demeaning, something that is very undesirable to anyone who has any sense of decency about them. So about the 8th or 9th grade, particularly black male students, simply do not want to hear any more of it. And so they become rebellious and disruptive.
They turn off.
And this is just one word, dark. But then when you include in that the glorification of events that have happened all down through history that were supportive of the system of white supremacy, then the non-white person loses self-esteem, loses the will to want to do anything within that class. Now, if we're talking about mathematics or biology, zoology, there are not so many problems in those particular classes if you have the support of the sociological classes, the classes that deal with interactions between people. But when you don't have that support, the rest of it falls apart where the non-white student is involved. I hope to achieve, first of all, being aware of racism, what it is, and how it works, and then to make prescriptions as to what an individual can do and say on a daily basis in all 9 areas of activity so that they can counter what is already in place with the ultimate objective, not of establishing another form of racism or another form of mistreatment of people, but with the objective, ultimately, of producing peace. And you can only do that through revealing truth and then using truth in such manner as to produce a product called justice and correctness. Correctness means balance between people and things, creatures, etc. That's true. The system of racism, any system of mistreatment of people, first of all, has to be designed so that you have automatic animosity toward another person. And so that person goes into a category where when you look at that person, you'll say, I am supposed to have animosity toward that person. Of the basic royal concept, that there are certain people who should be royal. And at one time it might have been, presumably, just among white people themselves. But when they came in contact with non-white people, then the old royal system switched over to a color system, which is much more efficient, much more dynamic, and it's proven to be the greatest political system and the greatest religious system in the known universe. It's the most powerful. It's an idea that has set off all kinds of ramifications among the body politic of the people in the known universe.
Yeah.
Well, economics means that the use of time and energy.
Okay.
And the racists, when they looked around at the people that they classified as non-white, they decided, well, one thing, we will have domination over the way that they use their time and energy. And all of these areas of activity are interrelated. Economics is interrelated with education. Education is interrelated with entertainment. Entertainment is interrelated with labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war. All of these 9 areas are interactive. So, if you're a white supremacist, in order to really be supreme, you have to get control over everything that people do in all of these 9 areas if these people are classified as non-white. And of course, being a supremacist, the supremacist always does the classifying, not the victims. The victims cannot classify themselves without the approval of the white supremacist. Just like a term that you hear now in popular parlance is the term biracial.
Yes.
Or multiracial, or
What does that mean?
multicultural. Now, these are terms that the victims of racism will have to pick through and try to. They are given this selective chart where they can determine if they are biracial and to what degree of biracialism, whatever that's supposed to mean, what degree of colorism, whatever that's supposed to mean. More confusion. See, the basic reason, the basic tool of the races is deceit.
Yes.
So therefore, deceit is supposed to produce confusion. The more confusion you have, the more deception you have among the victims. Now, the racists will not be deceived. The white supremacists will be able to function as white people. That will still be their classification. The classification will be white. That's the dominant classification. All of the so-called biracial classifications will be more confusion. And a hypothetical situation would be that you would have then non-white people going into an employment office making out forms where they will try to find out whether they are part Indian, part Portuguese, part semi-this, and bi that, and multa this, and multa that. And it will take them all day probably to make out their form. Anyone who is classified as white will come in and maybe in a few minutes make out their applications and leave. The non-white people will still be there at closing time trying to figure out who they are and where they fit into the subordinate, and I underline subordinate categories. This is why it's important to always watch the words that are produced under the system of white supremacy. Any type of words that are introduced into the language, such as multiracialism, multiculturalism, biracialism. Take the term multiculturalism. Culture is what you do. That's all it is. Whatever people do in any one or more of the 9 areas of activity is the culture of that person at the time that the person is doing it. Whatever it is that the person is doing. There's nothing mysterious about culture. The victims of white supremacy have a victimization culture all over the world. So, to straightening out race problems, you have to have the words. The words are not correct. Hardly any of the words are correct. The words are designed to support racism. And this is why you have the confusion you have in the schools.
Deceit.
Yes, the deceit. See, the words are designed to support deceit, which is the basic tool of the white supremacists. So your role model would be a code that is designed to counteract all of the words, a code of thought, speech, and action, all of the words first of all, and then the deeds that would counteract what is already in place, which is injustice. Recently, I coined, that means, so people can remember it easily, the VGQ means Victims Guaranteed Qualification. And the purpose of this is to minimize and or eliminate unnecessary conflict between the victims of racism in their confusion of trying to do something about it, like end it and replace it with justice. And the VGQ means you're guaranteed the qualification. You're the victim of white supremacy. That's what the victim means. You're guaranteed the qualification to say anything that you want to say about race, racism, or counter-racism. By being a victim, you're guaranteed that qualification. You're guaranteed from birth that qualification. So therefore, no non-white person can tell another non-white person what to say, what not to say, and how to say it on the issue of race, racism, or counter-racism, because no non-white person is qualified to tell another non-white person
what
this.
To be a victim.
Reason being, all are equal victims. Neely Fuller is not qualified to say what Mr. Queen can say or not say in regards to race, racism, or counter-racism. Any other non-white person. Now you can raise questions, or you're qualified to say things to white people about things that are said about race, racism, or counter-racism. Reason being, white people are not victims of white supremacy. Well, when you put it in the frame of reference, everyone, when they talk about racism and white supremacy, should always start by saying that the focus, the objective should be replace white supremacy with justice. Those are the 5 basic words. And you start your frame of reference from that. The words are very important, because when people talk about racism, they tend to get away from the basic focus. If you keep those 5 words in mind, replace white supremacy with justice, then you can keep focus. In many of these discussions on the matter, people tend to get into everything from feminism to words that don't have precise definitions.
And everything else. They go off on a tangent.
Yes, right.
Yeah, but this kind of locks it in.
Right. Bigotry, discrimination, sexism, a multitude of isms. Biracialism, whatever that means, multiculturalism.
Whatever that means.
Yes. And so you get into a myriad of words that don't apply to the focus of what you're talking about. So therefore, that is the basic frame of reference that you should always focus on. That should be used by all people who are talking about the problem as it is. Well, the 3 T's called a tragic arrangement are tacky, trashy, terroristic. Now, this is the arrangement that non-white people on this planet have with white people in their everyday interactions in all areas of activity.
Tacky,
trashy, and terroristic. One of the 3. It doesn't get any better than tacky. If you will observe black people, for instance, in the presence of white people, on account of the way that both of them are raised within the system of white supremacy, there's a strain there. There's not a even flow. So what you have is a tackiness. It doesn't get any better than tacky. It can't get any better than tacky within the system of white supremacy.
Why?
So this is all very tragic. Well, because the system of white supremacy demands that white people interact with non-white people in a certain way that is harmful and harsh and overall destructive. And that the non-white people interact with the white people in the same manner. And they are taught this. Both people
are taught this.
Are taught this at a very early age, and then the teaching goes on every day in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Yes, well, you can tell that there's a strain even on college campuses and whatnot, and in schools. The people will go to the classes together because that's where the classes are. That's where the teaching is. And then the students will separate themselves in the lunchroom. Now, there's a reason for that. And the reason is not healthy. It shows it's something that is completely out of order. Because if the people are sharing the same classroom and learning the same things and having the same values that are taught in that classroom, then why do not the people interact with each other in all of the areas of activity without exception in harmony? Under the system of white supremacy, a black student sitting next to a white student is being taught how to be a victim of white supremacy. The white person, the white student, is being taught how to be a white supremacist.
And it's all in the language.
This is done in the language, in the use of the words, in the subject matter of the materials, if the material in any way relates to interactions between people. Now, the other two T's, trashy, if you try to improve on the tackiness, then it gets trashy. The interactions between. For instance, you can say that in the area of religion, Sunday morning, black people and white people do not attend the same churches. Right, now that is tacky, particularly in the area of religion. It should not be. The two people should come together in religion if in nothing else. It would seem logically speaking. But under the system of racism, since the basic teaching of the white supremacy system is that white supremacy is a religion, so you have a built-in barrier
already
against black people and white people sharing the same premises and preaching the same gospel and talking about loving each other and treating each other with justice. So therefore you can't have what you call black people and white people in the same religious setting, which is why you don't have it. So what you do have, and I'd like to add this, is the trashiness that goes on the same Sunday morning, and that is maybe in the houses of prostitution, in the houses of dope dealing. Then you will have black and white together.
That's the only
same day
place
on Sunday. Yes, one in Christ, they often say. And that is something that not even many black people care to explain. That they say we are, in Christ there is no east, no west, etc., etc., etc. Yet, the black people and the white people cannot sit down in the same bench in a church. Well, that is because of the race issue.
As well.
It's always because of the race issue. You can't do anything. You can't straighten out anything in religion or any of the 9 areas of activity without first eliminating racism. And here again, there's only one functional form, and that is white supremacy. The role model for replacing white supremacy should be a code of thought, speech, and action, not a person, never a person. And that also applies to producing justice throughout the world, which justice has never been produced, as far as anyone who is existing now knows anything about. We don't know what justice would be like. We don't know what peace would be like.
Yes.
Never had it. So in the process of producing justice, you need a role model, and that role model has to be a prescription. Some ministers have said in the beginning there was the Word. Now that certainly applies also to straightening out race problems. You have to have the words. The words are not correct. hardly any of the words are correct. The words are designed to support racism. And this is why you have the confusion you have in the schools.
Deceit.
Yes, the deceit. See, the words are designed to support deceit, which is the basic tool of the white supremacists.